El-Rufai sues Kaduna Assembly over 432 billion naira probe. 23 dead, 2 injured as gunman attacks mosque in Kano. Nnamdi Kano appeals ruling against subjection to court jurisdiction in trial. And on the foreign scene, death toll hits 13 as police fired demonstrators in Kenya anti-tax protests. Hello, welcome to News Updates on Trust TV. I'm Lilian Ogazi. And now to the news. Former Governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, has filed a case against the Kaduna House of Assembly seeking to enforce his fundamental human rights. The suit alleges that he was denied a fair hearing during the investigation by the House of Assembly into alleged misuse of public funds and money laundering during his tenure as governor from 2015 to 2023. El-Rufai, alongside former commissioners who served under his administration, filed a suit at the Federal High Court in Kaduna. The Kaduna House of Assembly had inaugurated a 13-man ad hoc committee to examine the loans, grants and projects implemented during the El-Rufai's tenure as governor of Kaduna State. The committee's report adopted by the House indicated El-Rufai and some key members of his cabinet for alleged corruption in the awards of contracts and management of both domestic and foreign loans obtained by his government.
The Kaduna State House of Assembly set up an ad hoc committee to investigate loan and other activities of the former administration. A lot of witnesses were called, and they did hearing and they admitted a lot of documents. But strangely, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, who apparently was the target of the investigative committee, was never invited. The law is very clear. Everybody deserves to be given a hearing. The right to fair hearing is a natural right that inheres into every human being. Malam Nasir El-Rufai was a lot of allegations were made against him. He was not given a hearing at all. As a law-abiding citizen who believes in the rule of law and who believes that when there are infractions, you need to approach the court, he's here today before the Federal Court to enforce his right that every infraction they alleged, he was not given an opportunity to say his own side of the story.
Meanwhile, the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kano, has appealed to the June 19 ruling of Justice Bita Yako of the Federal High Court Abuja against his objection to the jurisdiction of the court to subject him to trial. Kano, through his lead counsel, Aloy Ejimako, filed a notice of appeal at the Court of Appeal in Abuja. Ejimako said the grounds of the objection are 7 and mostly predicated on provisions of the Constitution, the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022 and other pertinent statutes. He said that learned trial judge erred in law on occasion grave miscarriage of justice against the appellant when the trial court held that the main claim in this application deals with the count of charge the defendant is facing. The House of Representatives Committee on Public Assets on Tuesday asked security agencies to immediately arrest an alleged unlicensed auctioneer and Director of Quality Control of the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology over the sale of 2 helicopters for $1.2 million each. The committee called on the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Wetukun, to take over the investigation of the alleged indiscriminate sale of 2 of NAC's helicopters. The resolution of the Committee on Public Assets came after about 5 hours of interaction with the management of the college and other relevant bodies. The chairman of the committee, Ademori Kuye, was worried that the 2 choppers bought at $2.4 million were sold at $1.2 million without due process. Kuye and his colleagues also queried the use of an unlicensed auctioneer who failed to provide needed response to inquiries. In his reaction, the coordinator, Nigerian Army Aviation, Musa Alkali, said that the request by the Army to make use of the helicopters in the fight against terrorism was turned down. He demanded that the 2 helicopters should be recovered. A member of the committee, Mdala Balami, said that the documents presented to the committees were false documents. The Federal Capital Territory Administration has disbursed 3.62 billion naira to 6 area councils, teachers and pension scheme as statutory allocation for May. The Minister of State FCT, Dr. Maria Mahmood, presided over Tuesday's 190th FCT Joint Account Allocation Committee meeting in Abuja. Mahmood said that 1.14 billion naira was set aside for the 6 area council, while 2.49 billion naira was earmarked for teachers and pension schemes. The minister equally said that Buhari Area Council received 152.8 million naira, Abaji 119.49 million naira, and Kwali 167.5 million naira. The minister said that of the 2.49 billion naira earmarked for teachers and pension scheme, 2.12 billion naira was allocated to primary school teachers, while 36.25 million naira was set aside as a 1% training fund. She also said that a total of 226.4 million naira was set aside as 15% pension fund, while 107.85 million naira was earmarked as 10% employer pension contribution. A former president of the Nigerian Bar Association and governorship candidate of the Labour Party for the September 21st Edo governorship election, Olumide Akpata, is again calling on the governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, to swear in the remaining 3 judges recommended by the National Judiciary Council for the state judiciary. Akpata made the call in a forum for legal professionals in Bini on Tuesday. He alleged that Obaseki selectively swore in only 5 out of the 8 recommended judges about 1 year after the recommendation was made. No fewer than 23 people have been killed following an arson attack on worshippers at a mosque in the Laraba Abasawa community of Gezawa local government area of Kano State. Checks by Trust TV at the Murtala Muhammad Specialist Hospital, where the victims of the attack received treatment, show that 22 out of 24 admitted were dead. One victim who was taken to the Kano Teaching Hospital was reported dead, taking the death toll to 23. 2 persons who were among the victims survived the attack. Reports say the attackers, one Shafiu Bubakar, was said to have allegedly sprayed the mosque area with petrol, locked the door, and set the mosque on fire while the worshippers were observing the morning prayers. World Human Rights Organization Amnesty International said insecurity has left over 2,600 dead and over 50 rural communities in Benue State have recorded a total of 135 attacks in the last year. The organization disclosed this in its data on Benue State humanitarian crisis on Wednesday. Now, according to Amnesty, the data was recorded between January 2023 and February 2024, adding that the deaths were mainly women and children. It also said 18 out of the 23 local government areas have been affected by insecurity, leading to displacement of people, some kidnapped and others raped. It said over 55 schools have been destroyed by armed attackers, just as over 23 local markets have been attacked and destroyed. It added that over 80% of farming population in Agatu, Guma and Gwe West have been displaced with no access to their farmland or any means of livelihood. Now moving over to River State, where the River State government said it has found the suspect who detonated an explosive device near the state-owned presidential hotel during a pro-police protest in Port Harcourt on Tuesday. This came less than 24 hours after the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Adeze Ore, alerted management of both public and private medical facilities in the state on the identity of the suspect, injury signs, and the need to detain him if being found. A substance believed to be dynamite went off near the presidential hotel access of the Aba Expressway, causing panic in the area. Ore, while speaking to newsmen on Tuesday evening, said River State Ministry of Health is calling for an alert to all medical facilities in the state, both public and privately owned facilities, to be vigilant and look out for one individual, a young man with a traumatically dismembered upper limb, because this injury was sustained, requires medical attention. In an effort to curtail crime associated with motorcycles and tricycles in the state, Abia State government has announced plans to enumerate and re-register tricycles and motorcycles in the state. This was even as the state government also announced a restriction of operations of tricycles and motorcycles between the hours of 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. daily in Aba and Umuahia, with effect from July 1st, 2024. The State Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Uzonwa Chukwu, who is also the chairman of the Abia Harmonized Task Force, announced this on Tuesday while briefing newsmen on the outcome of the meeting he held with stakeholders in the state's transport sector, stating that the registration is free of charge. The Commissioner said the essence of the registration and restriction was to secure lives and properties of residents of the state. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, has decried what it called the deplorable working condition faced by its members. The union, which held a protest at the Federal University Kashere, accused the government of intentionally killing public universities, noting that most of its members are dying due to the inability of the government to pay academic allowances and withheld salaries. Hassan Kohli has more.
The union said this is part of its ongoing effort to protect public universities against collapsing. ASUU said issues like not funding tertiary institutions and withholding lecturer salaries, among others, are inflicting serious damages on Nigeria's higher education, warning of unpleasant consequences. The union said it is worried about the current deplorable state of its members, noting that most of them are struggling with different health issues due to government's refusal to pay withheld salaries for 8 months in 2022.
We are not happy to close the universities, but we are forced to do so. We are dealing with the government that don't listen, with the government that amicably that is supposed to sit down around the table and iron out issues. You can see it appears as a very simple thing. The last administration, we had a solid discussion with them. The late Nime Briggs Committee, a draft agreement was come up between the two parties. But unfortunately, somehow due to some interest, that draft agreement could not come to reality. So our action is basically being forced, and it remains at the last option. Up till now, in all our engagement with stakeholders, town halls, committee, we are asking if there's any option people thought.
Some of the lecturers faulted government failure to improve the working condition of teachers, noting that the development comes with negative impact on both lecturers and students.
Many of our members died. We have many professors that we lost across in fact, one of the NEC that I attended, the rate of death that were reported from various branches is very alarming. And this is a result of the poor remuneration in the university. A lecturer cannot sustain himself. The salary is nothing to talk about. And you know that in our cardinal responsibility, we have community service, we have research. Some of our researches are consuming our resources. Therefore, we can no longer continue to sustain ourselves.
A lot of brain drain. You see most of our professors, doctors, not just in the academics, in other fields, engineers in the medical line, they are leaving the country because of these same issues. We don't just have them in the academic, in fact, but it's worse with the university system. It's not just with the university, but it is, I don't know, maybe there's something that we have done to the government that they are so vindictive with the academics. But look at the structures. Look at the school environment. You can't find this in civilized climes.
The protesting issues, among others, include the removal of ASUU from IPPIS, unpaid and academic allowances, and the funding of public universities. Hassan Kohli, Trust TV News, Gombe.
6 teenagers on Tuesday drowned in the Mbang River of Ribang village of Kauru local government area in Kaduna State while returning from a Junior WAEC examinations. The victims were all students of Government Secondary School Fadan Chawai writing the West African Junior School examination. The National Public Relations Officer of Mbang Development Association, Simon Ishaku, who confirmed the incident on Wednesday, disclosed that 3 dead bodies have already been recovered and buried amidst tears. The State Police Command is yet to confirm the incident. Despite reported cases by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Kano State government has debunked reports indicating that there is a cholera outbreak in the state. The Public Relations Officer, Ministry of Health, Ibrahim Abdullahi, made this known on Wednesday. He said findings so far reveal that there is no cholera outbreak in Kano, as no single case of disease has been recorded in the state as of now. The NCDC had said about 1,141 cases were recorded between January and June 11, 2024, while 65 have been confirmed. As of June 12, 30 deaths were reported from 96 local government areas in 30 states, where Kano has 13 confirmed cases and recorded 1 death. According to the agency, so far, total deaths amount to 34, while confirmed cases are 1,288. A fire has damaged a section of the $20 billion Dango Refinery outside Lagos, barely 6 months after it began operations. Videos trending in Nigeria show a thick smoke billowing from the refinery, which is located within the Lekki Free Trade Zone. The fire was, however, without casualties, said Anthony Chiejina, a spokesman for the Dangote Group. The development comes just days after the firm accused international oil companies of sabotaging the refinery, accusing them of selling crude oil above the market price or failing to supply the refinery with crude. The firm said this forced the refinery to purchase its crude from the United States. A Dangote executive also accused the downstream and midstream regulatory of sabotage and failing to stop the importation of dirty fuel into the country, an allegation the regulator denied. The refinery, which has a capacity to refine 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day, is expected to supply the entire West African sub-region. Dangote had recently accused oil mafias of plotting to frustrate the region from being self-sufficient in energy. Nigeria's economy is facing a prolonged downturn that has continued to have a negative impact on businesses across the country. The situation is further exacerbated by the ongoing disputes between the federal government and labor leaders over the minimum wage issue. Habiba Tajayi tells us that many Nigerians may have to tarry a little more as President Tinubu demands more time for wider consultation on the minimum wage demands. The report.
As the economic crisis deepens, businesses of all sizes are struggling to stay afloat. High inflation rates, currency devaluation, and fluctuating fuel prices have significantly increased operational costs, making it difficult for many enterprises to maintain profitability.
We already have businesses living now. All of us are not interrogating where our brothers and sisters working in those companies. Where are they? So a figure beyond what the private sector can pay might also lead to loss of jobs. Now we complain about insecurity. Where is also, so we have to put all those together, and a fundamental, lastly for me, on this minimum wage issue, a fundamental element in setting of national minimum wage that you cannot take away is the ability to pay. If you take out the ability to pay, then you have just set a stage for crisis, basically.
Adding to the economic woes is the contentious issue of the minimum wage. The federal government and the labor union leaders have been locked in negotiations, with unions demanding an increase to match the rising cost of living, while the government cites budgetary constraints as a barrier to meeting these demands.
They must reach a compromise, and what's the compromise we are thinking as an economist? We are looking at between 100 and 150,000. We're also looking at the backlash, the negative externalities that could follow that change. The fact is that we must also look at the people that are not working with the federal government, the private sector, which is very, very key. So if government is paying 100,000, can the private sector pay 100,000? That is the question, and that's why the tripartite must come together.
Despite these challenges, some experts believe that resolving the minimum wage dispute could put a much-needed boost to the economy by increasing the consumer spending power. However, achieving a consensus remains a significant ordeal, as the president has asked for time to widen the consultation net.
President's speech, which states that all the reforms that he's put in place is geared towards revamping the economy.
My plea to all of us is to know that these are trying times, and it's not just about Nigeria, it's a global issue. So we must join hands. This is our country. We must see it so and join hands to believe that there will be some respite down the line. Let's continue to join forces and make it work.
With Nigerians' businesses caught in a precarious situation of struggling to navigate the dual challenges of an economic downturn and an unresolved minimum wage issues, stakeholders says the resolution of these issues is critical for the stability and growth of the country's economy. Habibat Ajayi, Trust TV News, Abuja.
And now moving over to the foreign scene, starting off in Kenya, where the death toll from protests has climbed to 13. An official from the main doctors association told on Wednesday, after anti-tax hike rallies turned violent and police opened fire at demonstrators who ransacked parliament. The unprecedented scenes that left parts of parliament ablaze and gutted and injured scores of people on Tuesday have shocked Kenyans and prompted President William Ruto's government to deploy the military. The mainly youth-led rallies began mostly peaceful last week, with thousands of demonstrators marching in the capital Nairobi and across the country against the tax increases. But tensions flared sharply on Tuesday afternoon as police officers fired live rounds on crowds that later ransacked the parliament complex. An official at Kenyatta National Hospital in Nairobi said Wednesday that medics were treating 160 people, some of them with soft tissue injuries and some of them with bullet wounds. In a late-night press briefing, Ruto warned that his government would take a tough line against violence and anarchy, likening some of the demonstrators to criminals.
Today's events mark a critical turning point on how we respond to grave threats to our national security. I assure the nation that the government has mobilized all resources at the nation's disposal to ensure that a situation of this nature will not recur again at whatever cost.
And now to sports. Alexander Usyk has confirmed he has surrendered the IBF heavyweight title to allow Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua to fight for it on September 21st. The Ukrainian became the first undisputed champion in the sports glamour division for 25 years when he beat Tyson Fury in May. But now, the belts have been split up again as Usyk, who was due to be called for a mandatory defense, has given up the IBF title. Usyk, who is set to face Fury in a rematch on December 21st, which was part of the contract he signed for the first fight, which he won on points to add the WBC title to his collection. The undisputed crown won't be on the line for the second fight. Well, with that, we've come to the end of News Update here on Trust Television. Do well to follow us across all our social media platforms for more news programs and documentaries. Thanks for watching. I am Lilian Ogazi.